Thank you. Um, Good morning, everybody. My name is Liza Meyer. I'm the interim commissioner and chief landscape architect for Boston Parks and Recreation Department. And this morning we are holding a hearing of the Boston Parks and Recreation Commission. Today is Monday, April 28th, 2025. And I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. I'll introduce those in attendance. We have Associate Commissioner William Epperson, Sandy Kotz, Jean Bollinger, Jessica Pierre, I.C. Washington, and we're also joined by Executive Secretary of the Parks Commission, Carrie Dixon, as well as members of the project team presenting the item on today's agenda, as well as members of the public. So thank you all for being here, and I think that we are ready to move into the first agenda item.
Is Chief Sweat on this call? Not seeing him yet.
He may be, but I don't know if he is unmuted.
Okay.
There's a lot of people. Oh, there he is.
Okay. All right. So I will start by reading for the record. We wanted to acknowledge Liza Meyer's tenure as the Chief Landscape Architect and most recently as Interim Commissioner of the Boston Parks and Recreation Department. And Chief Sweat, you want to speak, please? There you go.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity. I think as folks on the call hopefully know, this is Liza's last meeting, not only as interim commissioner of Parks and Rec, but after a decade and a half of tremendous impact at the Parks and Rec department, primarily in the landscape architecture and design remit. We're tremendously sad to see her go, but she's not going far, as I think folks appreciate. She's the incoming leader of the Friends of the Boston Common. So we look forward to working with her in that new capacity, but just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and thank you, Liza, for your phenomenal stewardship and impact at Parks and Rec and in open space preservation and development throughout Boston for a very long time. That'll leave a lasting legacy for current and future generations. So thank you, Liza.
Thank you. And I also wanted to just acknowledge Liza as well, having worked with her for 12 years now. She was on the hiring team that brought me in, and it's been my honor and enjoyment to work with her closely ever since. And as a resident of Boston, to thank her for all the work that she has done, not only in the design and planning of the city's parks, helping with the acquisitions that we have achieved, the improvements, the continual improvements to our parks, and also mostly for our advocacy. I think while she and I might sometimes feel like our successes are incremental rather than large, I do feel that our work has always been to hold the line, to keep our parks free of encroachment, to protect them under Article 97. It's a constant ongoing issue in a very dense city, and Liza has been amazing in her advocacy and activism for that part. And I'm glad her next role will be with the Friends of the Public Garden, where she can continue to work with the citizens of Boston to speak for their parks. So thank you so much, Liza.
Thank you. Appreciate those kind words.
At least one more, Liza. I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to thank you personally in behalf on Associate Commissioners past and present. Your dedication and contribution over the years has been tremendously helpful for those of us who serve on this body. Having your perspective and those very detailed and thorough memos has always been very helpful and allowed us to ask pertinent questions and to look at the project with the appropriate perspective. So personally, thank you, Liza.
Thank you all. It's very kind, and I appreciate that. And I am impressed that you did that while I was still here. That wasn't something we were able to deliver for Ryan. I think we recognized him after he left, so or for Commissioner Woods. So thanks again. I really, really appreciate that. So with that, let's move forward with the first and only item on our agenda today.
This is a vote to approve the plans for White Stadium as proposed by Boston Public Schools and Boston Unity Soccer Partners, which is sited at 450 Walnut Avenue on assessing parcel number 12034860001, which is separate from and surrounded by Franklin Park, which is located in the neighborhoods of Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Jamaica Plain.
So while the team gets ready to share their presentation, I just want to outline what I think will be our approach today. We'll hear from the project team. They'll review their submission. We'll have time. This is typical of all hearings, but I just want to make it clear. We'll have time for questions from commissioners. We'll then open this up to public comment. And depending on how many people we see who want to make public comments, we'll gauge whether we need to limit the amount of time for each public commenter or not, just so that we can be fair and reasonable with the time that we're here today. And then after the public comment period, the commissioners will have an opportunity to share any reactions, comments amongst ourselves as commissioners before I call for a motion. So if there are any questions about that, please let me know. Otherwise, that's what I anticipate going on today. All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dion Irish. I have the pleasure of serving as the Chief of Operations. First, I want to join others in thanking Liza for your leadership, not only as mentioned and the impact you've had throughout the city, but specifically in ensuring that this project reflects the values of Franklin Park and the urban park design more broadly. We'll definitely miss your steady hand and vision, and we wish you all the best in your next chapter. Over the past 2 years, we've worked hard to develop a design that delivers on 3 key priorities: a revitalized athletic hub for the Boston Public Schools, a vibrant, inclusive community space, and a home venue for the Boston Legacy Football Club. Together, these upgrades will dramatically expand public access at the stadium from the current 8 to 4 p.m. weekday schedule to 15-hour days, 7 days a week for over 345 days a year. Today, we are requesting your vote to move this project forward, following a comprehensive update on the conceptual design and its alignment with the Franklin Park Action Plan. Next slide. I'm joined today by colleagues who have been working day-to-day on this project. Diana Fernandez-Bibeau, Deputy Chief of Urban Design for the Boston Planning and Development Agency, now the Planning Department. Avery Edsdale, the Executive Director of BPS Athletics. Tamara Roy, the Principal Architect at Stantec. And JP Carbono, Associate Principal at Crowley Cottrell Landscape Architecture. After our presentation, we will welcome questions and your feedback with support from other expert colleagues who are listed on this slide. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Executive Director Avery Edsdale to begin our presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chief Irish. Sorry, I have a little technical issues here. Thank you, Chief Irish. As the Senior Director of Athletics for BPS and somebody who works in the stadium every day, I want to speak directly to the value of this project and what it brings to our students. As you all know, there's no shortage of opinions about this project, but from the ground level, I can tell you our students need and deserve better. The current facility is in poor condition and does not reflect the potential or the pride for the young people who compete here. Right now, our Boston Public Schools student athletes train in facilities that aren't just outdated, they're nowhere close to what students in the suburban public schools or private schools have had for decades. Currently, we have no real space for strength and conditioning, no access to sports medicine support. We have coaches working in creative spaces out of closets and not out of proper offices, and students juggling school, sports, and life without a decent place to study, recover, or prepare. This renovation changes all that. It gives us the facilities to match our aspirations as a department For the first time, all students with all mobility levels will have full access to a professional grade facility that nurtures their growth and allows them to maximize their athletic and academic potential. And we're finally to the point where the right partnership, vision, and resources are aligned to make that real.
Thank you, Avery. To reach this point, we've gone through an extensive public process, holding small group meetings, open houses, and formal review sessions since last summer. Even this list doesn't capture every meeting or conversation that we've had. This slide shows a snapshot of those engagements, each of which have helped shape the design you'll see today. Every round of feedback helped refine how the stadium fits within Franklin Park and better meet the needs of the broader community. This is now the fourth time we're appearing before the Parks Commission. We first introduced this project in January 2024, returned in July and August for your review of parkland impacts and the vote on the demolition. And now we're here seeking your support to advance the project into the construction phase. Since our last check-in with you, we've hosted a public tree meeting, signed a lease with the Boston Legacy Football Club that locks in the community commitments and protect public access. And we've begun demolition work at the stadium and successfully defended the project in court. Next slide. We know one of the biggest community concerns has been whether a public-private partnership would protect public access and preserve White Stadium as a BPS first facility. That's why we negotiated legal commitments that reflect those priorities as shown on this slide. These agreements ensure the financial responsibility from Boston Legacy, which is annual rent, shared revenue streams, full maintenance responsibility, saving the city an estimated $2 million per year, community benefits that include expanded public access, 345 days a year, a $1 ticket contribution to the Franklin Park Action Plan, a $500,000 community fund, new public restrooms, and a first of its kind tree bank for the park. The accountability mechanisms, this lease includes a 10-year review cycle, construction escrow penalties for non-performance, a legally binding $45 million completion guarantee. We will also establish the White Stadium Neighborhood Advisory Council, a guiding body that ensures local voices help inform how the stadium operates, including programming and the community use, and that there's a direct line of communication between city leaders and our partners. All legal agreements are public and can be found on boston.gov/white-stadium. Next slide. This slide represents the significant investments this project is making in Franklin Park and how the design intentionally connects the goals of the Franklin Park Action Plan. The key highlights include that the design delivers a net gain of 32,000 square feet of green space, reconnecting the stadium to the playstead and opening up landscape areas that have been inaccessible for decades. This project provides annual investments of hundreds of thousands of dollars into the park through the commitments I previously mentioned. New public restrooms and water fountains will be added to both the north and south ends of the site, serving daily park users year-round, not just event attendees. We're also addressing climate resilience by upgrading stormwater infrastructure to reduce flooding around the stadium and into the playstead. And through the creation of the Franklin Park Tree Bank, this project will add over 500 new trees, helping restore and strengthen the park's canopy for generations to come. Next slide. Now, let's shift our focus to the ground floor design of the stadium, the functional core of the building, and how it supports the Boston Public Schools and our public access goals. This layout reflects a student-first design. From the start, we've prioritized spaces that directly serve BPS students, while ensuring that the entire community benefits from thoughtful, inclusive features. On this level alone, the stadium includes a state-of-the-art strength and conditioning center to support athletes' development, a sports medicine suite to provide care and recovery on site, offices for the BPS athletics team, making White Stadium a daily operational hub for the district, a flexible multi-purpose room for events and study spaces for students, an 8-lane track with spaces and facilities to support field sports. I want to thank both the design and landscape teams for both parts of the project for working together to deliver one cohesive vision, a beautiful, functional stadium that reflects the needs of the Boston Public Schools, our neighborhoods, and every future user, and for starting where it matters most, with students. With that, I'll hand it off to Tamara Roy from Stantec Architecture.
Thank you, Avery and Dion. Hello, Park Commissioners. I'm Tamara Roy from Stantec Boston. We have come so far since we saw you last. I'd like to explain the final architectural design of the stadium, which was a true team effort between Stantec, working on the west and the south sides, and Jones Architecture, working on the east and the north sides. Next. So this slide is meant to reorient us and refresh the commissioner's memories. The renovated stadium building sits to the north of the Playstead, tucked among old and new trees. It can be approached from the north, east, and west, just as it has always been. But the area that was blocked off to the south with chain link fences will now have an open, elliptical green lawn called the Grove. Working closely with the public, Boston Planning, the Boston Civic Design Commission, Boston Landmarks, and others, we and Jones Architecture designed a holistic stadium that contains all the Boston Public Schools and Boston Legacy program needs while incorporating historic features such as the north entrance pillars and the west clamshell wall. Next. Our collaborative design approach emanated from a synthesis of three eras: Olmsted's naturalized landscapes, the streamlined Art Deco style of the stadium, and today's goals of the Franklin Park Action Plan. We tried to land right in the center of this Venn diagram, where the new design is inspired by and blends in with architecture and landscape history. Next. Starting with the West Grandstand, the elevation facing the park, which is the upper image, is centered on the clamshell wall renovation, a memorable part of the 1949 stadium. New curved white wing walls extend toward either side. Behind the clamshell, a series of new concourse levels with elevators for universal access house the West Grandstand and the press box. The pillowy canopy above provides shade and helps minimize noise transmission. On the field side, the lower image, the grandstand seats are a combination of three shades of green, and the wings and staircases descend from the center in shallow arcs. Next. At the east side, a gently curving central volume is a more modern take on the clamshell wall. Patterns of smooth and textured white concrete provide interest, and the wall changes from mostly solid to a linear screen in the center, where the existing bas-relief sculpture is positioned above the new stadium entrance. Two Boston Public School entrances provide transparent gaps between the grandstands and the curving wings, which are also white concrete. Wood tone details and the canopy help to tie the east and west design together. Here we are looking at the north and the south sides of the stadium. In the upper image, the new wings curve toward the north entrance pillars, which we will show in greater detail in another perspective. The east and west grandstands and the canopies frame the track and field beyond, and the scoreboard is seen over 300 feet in the distance. In the lower image, the crescent building faces the Grove and is flanked by two stadium entrances and the curved wings, while the green backing of the scoreboard faces the Playstead. Next. We worked diligently with Boston Landmarks on this view from the Overlook, as it is one of the significant viewpoints from the original Olmsted design. You can see in 3 dimensions how the West Grandstand, press box, canopy, and the wings all step back from the clamshell wall so that it can be appreciated as a historically significant piece of the original 1949 stadium and an independent part of the final composition. On the east side, Jones Architecture has woven the wood tone material throughout their design to link it to the west and used similar compositional techniques to set apart their central curved stadium volume from their wings, while the bas-relief sculpture figures prominently above the entrance. After studying several stadium entrance options, this version was chosen because it adds a welcoming arch to the existing north pillars, ties all of the wood around the stadium together, and of course celebrates Boston Public Schools. The signage design team minimized park-facing signage, and the Neutra face font and sizes were chosen to relate to the 1940s era stadium. The smaller white north entry signs will fold up on game days, but they will be concealed on most days. Next. And this perspective is from the Playstead, just outside of the Grove. Garage doors open up the South Crescent building on both sides to create a long vista all the way past the track and field to the north entrance pillars, fulfilling a goal of the Franklin Park Action Plan to visually open up the stadium to the park along its north-south axis. Signage for the Grove is just large enough for wayfinding purposes. You can make out the Grove sign above the central garage door. And again, you can see the scoreboard green backing facing the Playstead. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to pass the narration to J.P. Charbonneau of Crowley Cottrell Landscape Architects.
Thank you, Tamara. I am J.P. Charbonneau, Associate Principal with Crowley Cottrell. In the interest of time and to minimize the number of handoffs to different speakers, I will be speaking about the work of many individuals and firms, including the work of Stantec's landscape architectural team. I will attempt to be as brief, complete, and as descriptive as possible, but if the Commission has specific questions, we have key members of all teams standing by. Next slide. Shown here are the overall goals from the action plan and our primary objectives with this project. Though the action plan predates these stadium improvements, we believe this project and this partnership, using these 4 principles, enables us to improve not just the area around the stadium, but also contribute to improvements for all of Franklin Park. This is our challenge and our mission. Next slide. This drawing illustrates the stadium as it was a few months ago, with the outline of the George White Trust property around it. Note we are changing orientations to zoom into greater detail to better show the dense information in future slides. The East Grandstand is to the top of the page, and the West Grandstand is on the bottom. I will often use the term carriage roads to describe Playstead and Pierpont roads, which circle and frame the Playstead. Of particular note is the southern area of our site, which currently has large expanses of asphalt for what was once a parking lot, and large overgrown fenced-in area, shown here in the dotted line, which contained BPS field sports and practices. This area will receive the greatest change and feel much more open and connected to the Playstead and the park. Next slide. This is the combined illustrative site plan. I will unpack this drawing in later slides to better describe the various improvements, but the key takeaway is that this partnership is applying the recommendations of the action plan by 1, reducing and managing vehicular traffic on the carriage roads, 2, introducing a southern path to provide additional connections through and around the Playstead, and 3, removing barriers like tall chain link fences to improve visual and physical connections. Boston Legacy's commitment to provide a dedicated private property manager to maintain the entire property, which will supplement Boston Park's maintenance, enables these improvements and ensure the project's long-term success. Next slide. This drawing illustrates all new trees proposed for the area around the stadium, which are shown in the dark green circles. Altogether, this project will be planting over 70 new trees. The new trees will be a diverse mix of East Coast native and adapted species, primarily oak and other large canopy trees, examples shown on the left. New trees will be arranged in informal groupings to provide shade, comfort, and scale, and visual connections around the playstead. In time, we believe these new trees will help integrate or knit the stadium into the existing tree canopy and make it feel tucked in. But the full story of additional trees do not end here. This project and this partnership has committed to contributing funds for a tree bank for over 500 trees for all of Franklin Park, in addition to the trees shown here. The remaining trees are to be planted in a period of 5 to 10 years at the discretion of the Parks Department and the future executive director of Franklin Park, to be used where and when they see fit. Next slide. In addition to new trees, we are proposing to add more biodiversity with understory planting to this part of Franklin Park, where there is currently only lawn and trees. We are proposing a variety of plant types. Low-growing fescue grasses, shown in orange, at the edges of the carriage roads and major paths, similar to what you would see as rough lawn edges at the golf course. Native woodland perennials and shrubs, shown in dark green, under the dense shade of existing trees, near rock outcrops and on slopes. Native grasses and flowering meadow, shown in yellow, in targeted and sunnier areas, and of course mown lawn, shown in green, which will provide clear sight lines in areas for gatherings and pedestrian circulation. When combined with the new trees, the benefits of a varied and diverse planting will be multiple. For people, greater visual interest and more vibrant colors and textures. For flora and fauna, a healthier, more diverse, and more resilient plant community. A planting palette like this is also more sustainable and better for the environment by reducing mowing and better intercepting and absorbing stormwater runoff. With this greater planting complexity and ambition, the partnership is committed to providing the utmost care and maintenance for all proposed plants. Next slide. This drawing illustrates the proposed paving materials inside and around the stadium. The predominant paving material for circulation in this project and for Franklin Park is asphalt, shown here in gray. The purpose of this drawing, however, is to highlight and draw attention to the variety of other paving materials, which will be used at more unique and special conditions. Gravel and granite cobble would have been the primary paving materials used in Olmsted's day. However, they are not considered ADA accessible. In its place, we propose a variety of other paving materials, which look similar, but are installed and constructed in a different, more modern way. Inside the stadium and around the South Crescent building is resin-bound aggregate paving, shown here in the peach color. This material uses a clear binder to reveal the natural color of the gravel and behaves much like asphalt, with the additional benefit of being permeable. There is precedent for this material in Boston public spaces. This material is used at City Hall Plaza and the soon-to-be-open Copley Square. Outside the stadium and at major stadium entrances, we are proposing exposed aggregate concrete paving with narrow sawn joints, shown here in purple. We will be proposing to seed or broadcast the gravel on top of the concrete paving to better control its appearance. This material also has precedent in Boston parks. It is used in Martin's Park, adjacent to the Children's Museum. And finally, we are proposing 2 sizes of granite unit pavers at more unique threshold and edge conditions. Large format granite at the historic box offices and pillars to celebrate these historic structures, and small format granite at edge conditions and to help reduce the scale of asphalt. Next slide. This drawing highlights altered and proposed grades or topographic contours around the stadium. Though the playstead is itself in a valley, the stadium also sits on land that is slightly lower than the carriage roads, especially on the east and west sides. Our proposed grading does not change this relationship. However, I do want to point out the areas of topographic change. On the northwest side, contours are tightened and adjusted to provide a service area or loading dock, which will be used by both BPS and Boston Legacy. On the southwest, an ADA accessible path is graded to bring pedestrians down the slope from the path at the bottom of the overlook wall. But note the area to the east, which has the most grading change. This area is currently 4 feet higher than the track and field. We are lowering this area to provide an ADA accessible entrance to the central east grandstand doors. These adjustments also offer us the opportunity to further reveal, clean up, and expose the pudding stone rock outcrop nearby. It is here where our woodland planting will be located so that the stadium and this project can engage and highlight this unique feature. Next slide. This single page captures some of the extensive work of our engineers. Though these improvements are mostly hidden and underground, they are absolutely vital to the long-term success and operations of the stadium and the park. Infrastructure will be upgraded and modernized for systems that are currently outdated, not up to code, and underserving the stadium. Utility improvements include new drainage systems, stormwater infiltration chambers, electrical.
Sorry to interrupt just a second. JP, it looks like you were muted all of a sudden. Hold on. There we go. You're back.
Okay. Should I
Maybe
start
just
over?
repeat your last sentence and then.
Okay.
Thanks.
Utility improvements include new drainage systems, stormwater infiltration chambers, electrical, telecommunication, and data lines, and new sewer and water lines. This major investment in utility improvements will also be expandable to provide connections and service for future improvements for the bear dens and the overlook. Of particular note are the new drainage lines and stormwater infiltration areas, which are shaded in blue. This new stormwater system will improve the ponding and drainage problems seen around the stadium today and further reduce runoff towards the Playstead fields. And perhaps most importantly, the teams have taken care to locate all utility lines under the carriage roads or major pedestrian paths to minimize the disturbance to existing trees. Next slide. This drawing zooms out to illustrate all the new light fixtures proposed for the stadium and the park. Inside the stadium, we are proposing modern and new athletic field lights shown in pink. For outside the stadium, and after the result of several discussions with Boston Parks and the Landmarks Commission, there are several fixtures proposed. Surrounding the stadium, we are proposing a new pole light, which has a tall mast and multiple heads or spotlights, similar to the pole light used in City Hall Plaza, shown here as the orange dot. This fixture can be spaced much further apart for clearer and more unobstructed views. The orange line along the west grandstand represents accent uplighting for the clamshell wall. The dashed orange line at the southern side of the South Crescent building represents hanging or catenary lights for discrete downlighting, which will be mixed in with the canopy of the proposed trees. For areas outside the stadium property, this project is proposing new lights, shown in blue, for the lower overlook path and the path to Seaver Street. These new park lights will be the historic-looking city standard acorn light, which is also used at other areas of Franklin Park. Next slide. Now we change orientations. North is above, and we zoom into the southern part of the site. This area, which is currently bounded by 10-foot tall chain link and overgrown fences, will become the Grove, a flexible lawn which will host formal and informal gatherings, large and small. If required for an event, Discrete posts with connected ropes can be installed in underground sleeves to cordon off the grove, as indicated on the plan. For Boston Legacy games, a taller fence will be installed in the same sleeves to create a secure event space for ticketed entries. But on a typical day, there will be no fence, the sleeves invisible, and the grove will be completely open, perceived and used as parkland. Also illustrated is our new southerly path, spanning across the Playstead and providing additional walking routes and new benches. This southerly path is also our emergency vehicle route into and around the stadium, an additional benefit. And to the southeast, what was once a large area of asphalt is transformed into open lawn and more park space. This area also contains 2 new full-size basketball courts and will provide space for BPS practices for field throwing sports like shot put and javelin, shown in the white outline on the lower right. To fit these range of activities, the 2 existing tennis courts and their tall chain link fences are relocated to an expanded tennis area on the other side of Franklin Park, near the Shattuck Hospital. Though these tennis courts are not a part of this project, this expanded tennis area will ultimately contain a total of 5 new courts, up from the current 2. Once completed, this area will be able to host larger organized activities for BPS and the community. Next slide. This aerial view of the Grove looks into the stadium from the southwest, with the Playstead fields behind us. Small paved areas on the sides of the Grove will also contain integrated power hookups to provide spaces and support for events, giving opportunities for local vendors and food trucks on Boston Legacy or other community event days. Small format granite pavers also define and frame the Grove lawn, the outdoor dining area at the South Crescent, and flank the sides of our southern path, which also contain our new benches, shown on the upper left. Next slide. This drawing illustrates all proposed and fixed site furnishings. New wood and metal benches, shown in orange, are located along the sides of the entire length of the southerly path. The benches with backrests are labeled A, and those that are backless for double-sided seating are labeled B. Fixed trash receptacles, shown in blue, are placed around the stadium to supplement the seasonal bins located throughout Franklin Park. New city standard bike racks, shown in red, will be installed on the north, east, and west sides to support visitors to the stadium or the Grove on a typical day. All of these furnishings will be maintained by the stadium property manager. Next slide. And finally, transportation. After the result of several rounds of public meetings and discussions between the project's designers and the Transportation Department and other city agencies, the city has posted a transportation document describing the operations and procedures for Boston Legacy and for BPS. This slide is one page from that document which describes operation on Boston Legacy game days. For visitors parking in remote parking lots and those traveling by train or T, a shuttle will provide pickup and drop-off services to 2 locations. The South Shuttle will pick up and drop off at the gated gravel lot along Circuit Drive. The North Shuttle will enter the park through the gated entrance on Walnut Ave, pick up and drop off at the north gates, and turn around and exit the park the same way they came in. For those arriving by rideshare, or TNC, the lot on Seaver Street will be utilized for pickup and drop-off. For mobility impaired visitors arriving at the South Shuttle lot and rideshare locations, which are further away and from which there is no ADA accessible route, wheelchair accommodating carts will be provided to ferry visitors to and from the stadium. For those arriving by bicycle, bike check-in and valet services will be provided at the basketball courts or along Playstead Road. In addition, The project will fund a new blue bike station seen to the south of the Plaisted Fields. For more specific details on this or other transportation operations and management, including those for BPS event days, please refer and provide comments to the online transportation plan. And with that, I hand it off to Diana. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute for a minute. Thank you so much, JP, for that detailed information. And as we close out today's presentation, I want to briefly walk you through the construction process and next steps and how we're continuing to ensure the public stays informed and connected. Next slide. So first, construction is currently underway. As Chief Irish mentioned earlier, demolition and early site preparation began this spring, and the work will continue into phases throughout 2027. Throughout the construction, we've built in safeguards to minimize the impact on the parkland and surrounding neighborhoods. These include detailed tree protection plans, a coordinated construction management plan informed by local stakeholders, leaders, neighbors, BPS coaches, and permit holders, and regular coordination with park operators to ensure that we're keeping areas safe and open. Next slide. But even as construction moves forward, following up on community commitments and engagement is an ongoing effort. The White Stadium Neighborhood Council will be launched this summer to advise on operations and programming at White Stadium. And the latest updates on the transportation plan for athletic events at White Stadium is now open for public feedback. So make sure to provide your feedback using the link that we're going to drop in the chat to inform the next iteration of this plan. We're also continuing our supplier diversity outreach, including a dedicated online dashboard that shows progress on contracting goals and upcoming contract opportunity fairs, as you can see here in this flyer. And we also encourage you to visit the boston.gov/White Stadium webpage and sign up for our email list to stay up to date, share feedback, and learn how to get involved. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up and hand it over to Dr. Sam DePina, who will close us out today.
Thank you, Diana. And thank you to the commissioners and as well as all the committee members who've been part of this journey with us. As someone who's experienced the stadium as a high school student between 1988 and 1992, as someone who's worked in and around our schools for 25 years, I'm not at all surprised that this project is one of the flagship priorities under Mayor Wu. She's made the boldest and most sustained commitment I've seen to upgrading BPS facilities, and this stadium is an example of that promise in action. Our student athletes, coaches, and athletic staff have done extraordinary work with limited resources, leading teams, mentoring students, and building pride in an aging infrastructure. This project is about matching their dedication with an investment that they deserve. It will elevate what's already happening in our schools, expanding opportunity, restoring dignity to our athletic spaces, and showing students that we see them, we believe in them, and we're building for their future. And we're going to do it with a deep commitment to long-term expanded public access. On behalf of the Boston Public Schools, I want to thank our athletic department, our students, and every coach who has pushed this work forward. We're proud to be part of this moment and grateful to the Parks Commission for helping bring this vision to life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody who shared in that presentation. I appreciate all of the information. I think, I've been making notes of questions I wanted to make sure were addressed, but as the presentation progressed, my questions were addressed. So I think I'll start by opening it up to other commissioners, and I'll come in later in the Q&A as needed. I'm not sure. I want to make sure you all have the ability to unmute still. If you can give it a try, commissioners, that would be great. And if you can, okay, I see a head shaking. I think if, Michael, if you could make sure that the commissioners can all unmute, that would be great. And we'll get started with any commissioner questions. Thank you. Oh, okay, we're still waiting.
I'm unmuted, but once I mute myself again, I can't unmute. So just
Okay.
acknowledging that.
Okay, great.
I guess since I'm unmuted, I'll go first. First, I'd like to express appreciation to all who have touched this from the design perspective. It is truly a thorough design. I personally believe it reflects nicely Franklin Park. And I have also noticed the design change over time in response to public comment, as well as comments from the Parks Department. So I'm always pleased when I see iterative design responsive to the public and the Parks Department. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the passion and activism within the community. Many folks don't necessarily agree with the project and how it's going forward, but I want to acknowledge those voices because I also believe they have truly driven the design team to continue to work on this, resulting in the best possible stadium project for the park. So just wanted to start with that. Liza, like you, my concerns, I believe I heard them, but I just want to make sure I heard them correctly. 3 primary concerns from my perspective. We have the public restrooms, which are a fantastic amenity. We have the new landscaping immediately surrounding the stadium itself. And we have several new trash receptacles throughout the park. Again, a great amenity for folks who are picnicking out there with their families. I wanted to be clear, who is providing the maintenance for those 3 things: restrooms, the landscape that immediately surrounds the stadium, and the trash receptacles? I want to make sure that I heard correctly that is not on the Parks Department, but will be handled by the stadium staff. So can someone confirm that for me?
Liza, am I allowed to respond?
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Iverson. Both the landscape surrounding the stadium and the public restroom facilities, which are located on the north of the stadium, so the northeast wing and then the southwest wing, will all be maintained by the Boston Legacy partners as part of the operational agreements that were codified within the lease.
And how will those restrooms be opened and closed? I assume they won't be open 24/7.
They will be opened the same hours of operations that the stadium will be opened. So we've committed to 15 hours a day. Currently, the tentative timing is from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. Every single day, with exception of major holidays.
Okay. And the emptying of all of the trash receptacles, will that be done on a daily basis by the stadium folks?
Correct. So we do have some exhibits within the lease that identify the area that is within the property boundary. That will be the receptacles and trash that will be maintained. And then during game days, thank you, Luke, for pulling that up. During game days, there is a sort of park impact area this right here. Thank you so much. So this park impact area here shown in green are the areas where after games, the Boston Legacy partners have committed to post-game cleanup. So this is picking up any trash, helping with the receptacles in those areas, making sure that the park is being put back into working function. And that is to be completed within hours after the end of the game. To ensure that, next day or even later that night, the park is ready to be used by regular park goers.
And so that includes both the emptying of trash receptacles, but also picking up of any litter that is left behind on all of these walkways and grass areas.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. And then the last matter I wanted to make sure I understood correctly before handing it off to others. We have a lease in place now. The city of Boston is retaining ownership. There's a lease that details the use by the soccer folks. Did I see correctly that that's for a 10-year period?
That is correct. The lease is a standard 10-year lease, and it is renewable up to 2 times, so up to 30 years. But every 10 years, we renegotiate the lease terms.
Great. Thank you. That's all for me now, Liza.
Thank you, Commissioner Are there questions from other Parks Commissioners? So you can just unmute and start talking.
I do have a question, Liza, building off of what was just discussed, actually. Because there were many references to stadium property manager throughout the presentation. And is that the same as Boston Legacy Partners, just so that I understand that? Is that one and the same?
Commissioner Bollinger, that is correct. So Boston Legacy will be the operator for the maintenance.
Are there other commissioner questions that can be answered or clarified? I think one thing that I believe this was touched on, but I sort of like Commissioner Epperson, I want to make sure that I have it right or that it was covered. There is, you know, a signage strategy around the stadium. I believe the commission may have seen some initial studies of signage. And so that signage package has advanced since the initial review. I know there are some signs that are, you know, only visible on game days, and those were shown at the north entry. I think we also saw the signage for the Grove in the slides. There's also signage to help with wayfinding on game days so that people know where they're going. And those signs are just temporary in the park. Can you share anything more about the temporary wayfinding signage?
So Liza, I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Tamara Roy, who can walk us through in a little bit more detail. We do apologize. We didn't include this in the main, we included a version of it in the presentation just to try to be brief. But we have a lot of detailed information here. And while Tamara unmutes, I think one of the key things I want to note here is that this was a really iterative process where we were working in consultation with landmarks, planning, and parks to sort of think about how to treat signage on the outer bowl versus inner bowl, and how to think about temporary wayfinding as a means to address wayfinding, but also ensure that there isn't additional signage that's being added to the park in a permanent fashion. So with that, I'm going to kick it to Tamara, who can walk you through that in more detail.
Thanks, Diana. Yeah, we have three slides prepared for you. The first two are the permanent signage that we worked out with park staff and Boston Landmarks, as Diana mentioned, and then the last one is on the more temporary signage. So this one shows on the east side and the north entrance the various wayfinding signage that we worked out with the signage consultants. And just for your note, the signage consultants were the same for the east and the west side. So that was great. We were all working together with Moody Nolan stadium designers. And so you can see on the upper left, you know, that when people are walking around a stadium and they have tickets, they need to know just where they're going. So we needed to name each of the entries. So you see the northeast entry, the on the top right, the east entry, and the southeast entry, so that, you know, we exactly know where we're going. And then also marking what I mentioned before in the elevations, that the southeast and the northeast are both primarily Boston Public Schools entrances. And then for the north, the bottom left, our charge, we thought more people know exactly what the historic north entrance is and where it is. But, you know, if you're totally new to this stadium, that's why we have the pop-up signs that say North Entry on the top of the two sides, small buildings just for games. But otherwise, it's really Boston Public Schools. That's the permanent signage on that side. And then if we go to the next slide, then you see on the west side, again, marking the west entry, the central doors to the clamshell wall. On the upper right, some partner signage that is very subtle. Again, the top right partner name field is actually another fold down sign that only occurs on game days. And then the Grove, the team store, and the partner name field on the other three images here are also just sized to fit the architecture and fit in with the architecture, so it's not sort of screaming at anyone toward the park. And so the next, which is really addressing your question, which is, so we have two types of wayfinding. So the green is where we feel, at least at the moment, people are going to be walking around the park, sort of having questions in their mind. How do I get to this? How do I get to that? And so we are using the typical Franklin Park signage as our reference point, which is a dark color with white lighting, with white letters on it, at those 4 green locations, where it seems like paths meet, and then you need to know where you're going. And then in addition to that, we have the temporary wayfinding signage, which is boards that are put up. Again, they will be looking more like the one on the left, but we wanted to show you this one on the right, which was part of the Charles River signage just recently for the boating events there. So it's a kind of typical way to do it in Boston. And that we've positioned in these various yellow locations when necessary. And again, it's evolving, so that if it turns out that you need more or you need less over time, it'll be a conversation with parks.
Thank you. Any other commissioner questions? Scanning to make sure I'm not missing anybody here. I saw that you just turned your picture on, Priyanka. I wanted to give you a chance to ask questions. Priyanka Venkina, I failed to introduce at the beginning of the hearing. Priyanka is a landscape architect with the Parks Department and has been assisting with design review for these projects. So go ahead, Priyanka.
Thank you, Liza. I just had a question on the specialty paving. It seems to be there's parts of, some granite, other specialty paving that are bordering or on the border of the parks property. I'm just curious about the maintenance for that. Is that being taken on by the manager, or is that going to be responsibility on parks?
An excellent question. I'm going to go ahead and kick this one to JP and Leah, who can speak to that in more detail. Priyanka, in our exhibits, the areas that are highlighted as being within the property boundary are to be maintained by the Boston Legacy Partners. And you can see we've been really judicious about where we're putting those pavement types. And then that introduction of either the cobble strip or granite sets, it's really only concentrated to the north entry where those pillars, just where the pillars come and hit the ground. And then in key locations on the edges of pavement to accept the benches, which again, I think still sit within the property boundary. But JP, Mish, and Leah can get into that in more detail.
Yes, just briefly, the stadium property is inboard of the carriage roads, but some of the paving extends beyond the stadium property to connect to the carriage roads, and those are also included and part of Boston Legacy's property management. And there are only a few instances where that happens. The specialty paving meets park. In most cases, specialty paving is completely within the property boundary.
Okay. Seeing no further questions from commissioners, I think we can open up for public comment. I'd like us to manage it, where if you have a comment that you want to make, please raise your hand. I see people have started that. I think it, out of respect for everybody's time, I think if we can have our comments be around 2 minutes, and so we can get through everybody. And then if it's important for somebody to make an additional point, they can come back and raise their hand again for another 2 minutes while we're here. But let's get started. I want to make sure Michael is able to unmute our first hand, Louis Elisa.
Thank you. And thank you, Lisa, for your sincere honesty and efforts to try to preserve Chapter 97 in Franklin Park open to the public. My name is Louis Elisa. I live at 68 Seaver Street. I'm president of the Garrison Tribe Neighborhood Association and a founding member of the Franklin Park Coalition. I've spent more than 47 years and thousands of hours in Franklin Park. I'm speaking because much of what was presented leaves out a lot that needs to be addressed. I'm not sure what the Boston Parks Commission is going to vote on, but without a presentation of the information that I was able to read on the transportation plan and including Franklin Park, I think we have a major problem facing us. An area between the zoo and the place that somebody called a tailgate area, which is an area that's used by the community. It's what the zoo uses for parking, the community uses for a number of activities and programs. A lot of the space which they have identified as transportation area for people coming from the roundabout area on Homestead and Seaver Street, that is community space, and it passes through areas in which we have a tot lot and other programs and activities used by the public. And simple, a lot of what has been presented is things that taken away Chapter 97 parkland from the people and the community. Matter of fact, had the process the IAG had been following under Article 80, a lot of these things would have been resolved, but there was no real attempt to have a dialogue. A number of public events that were terribly managed, but no clear understanding that the people who are going to be affected by this in Franklin Park are the residents, predominantly Black and brown people who live in the communities of Dorchester and Roxbury and Mattapan. And so the land that they're taking and the space and activities they're using has not been clarified what game day will look like. Based on their outlines, there are a lot of things that will change. A very good example is they talk about public restrooms. Are they saying these restrooms are open to the public at all times, that the park is open, and they're saying that on game day, these public will have access to these restrooms? Will these restrooms take the place of the porta potties that are used during special events and programs in Franklin Park on the Playstead? None of that has been clarified. So I'm not sure what the commissioners are going to be able to vote on, but if they're not talking about how the public uses space, whereas Pierpont Road or Playstead Road, then you don't have comprehensive information in which we work. But I know that the church on the corner of Seaver and Humboldt has been using the turnaround lot that they want to use for a biking and Uber lot. They have not been contacted or communicated with on any regular basis. There's no understanding as to how the church that operates on Saturdays, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, has been there for 50 years, how do they continue to use the agreement with the Parks Department and how they continue to work through. So these are issues. I'm not at 2 minutes, but I'll stop because a lot is about dignity. And there's got to be more importance and dignity on academic learning and training than there is for athletics. And if they're spending more money to do athletics and less on trying to do, school education and academics, I think we have misplaced values. But I would urge the Parks Commission to get a complete and comprehensive understanding. Finally, I have yet to see a comprehensive presentation of the athletic field. I have not seen anywhere where the field activities take place. Javelin and shot put does not a field make. So where does the broad jump, high jump, long jumps and things take place? And that's not detailed anywhere on these plans. Thank you.
Thank you. You did go over 2 minutes. Thank you for sort of wrapping up within a reasonable time. I'd like to give people a chance to finish making their points, but I also want us to try to allow there to be time for many people. So thank you, Louis, for that. The next hand raised is Frederick Betterline.
Hi, I've been involved in this process from the beginning, and I I have to say that a lot of the protest against this project has gone to meaningful results. When I first saw the project, there were these squarish buildings placed around the stadium. Nothing showed anything of the design of the park, the carriage that Olmsted put together. And I want to thank, and what is there now is just a beautiful rendition. It's now the park surrounds the stadium because the stadium is been giving these curved. It's almost like a pebble shape. It's oval and it fits into the landscape. It's like a hand holding holding the stadium now. The overlook is could be the thumb that wraps around the stadium. It's so complete in Olmsted's style of design. I think it's laudatory what has happened in the changes that have developed as this process has gone on. I'm very impressed with the design staff and what the city has put together. It seems as though they have an answer for everything and details, and I think it will improve. I think a lot of the questions that are raised today will be answered as we move further into this process. So I'm really very grateful for everything that's happened. And as far as transportation goes, the whole shuttle aspect will work very well. I've seen it worked in other parts, other cities, and it just allows people to meet somewhere else and park for free and get a ride to a stadium and the most wonderful experience, as well as helping the people that live around the park to have a go-to event that it rivals anything in any city. And plus the number of people that will be employed from the community around the stadium. There's nothing that could equal it. And the management for 10 years will rival the zoo, the golf course. It'll become an uplifting experience being there and not just a place where people wander and really just see the decay that continues. I'd like to thank the city once again. Thank you.
Thank you. The next hand I see is just called iPhone. If that's you, you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, sorry, I have to go to the Apple store to fix this, but my name is Kaliga. I am very opposed to this. I have been opposed to it. And the thing of it is that despite actually growing numbers of people opposed to this, and the fact that the communities surrounding the park are people of less, as I always say, affluence and influence, mostly people of color, who are most of the people who utilize that park. People don't wander aimlessly, even in the stadium. People go up and down the steps when it was there. And people have events. My children graduated from middle school in that stadium. And I grew up in Roxbury, so we went to concerts. Yeah, it needs to be fixed. Nobody here is against it being fixed. But there have been proposals, one from the Emerald Necklace Conservancy and from other people, that would cost far less. Tens of millions of dollars will be saved for taxpayers of Boston that would accommodate what the George Robert White Trust had intended, which was to serve BPS students in the community, that would fix the stadium, would not have taken at least 2 acres of green space, would not irreparably harm the native flora and fauna of Franklin Park, that would not have felled at least 145 trees, many of whom were old growth. That nobody visited those alternatives despite protests from people. And that park is utilized for health reasons, for well-being reasons, mostly by those community members that surround the park. That is our backyard. That is where we go to commune with nature, to meet and gather with friends and family, to hold festivals and to honor our heritage. That is ridiculous to even take part of a park during climate crisis when there are alternatives that would not take green space and that would cost tens of millions less, that could have been done and would preserve it. I want a women's soccer team not in a public space. And public access is going to be denied in part of a public park on game days and other event days. Really? In a public park? That's crazy. And if you vote to keep passing this as you have been doing, you are part of Mayor Wu's vanity project, which in decades to come will tarnish her reputation and yours. It really will, because there are alternatives that are better. So I don't understand this at all. I don't understand why this is going forward when we could have had a smaller footprint that would have served my children, our children, and the community far better. Thank you.
Thank you. The next hand I see is Sarah Freeman.
Good morning. Thank you. I will try not to repeat and be brief, but if I get too long, please let me know. I'll add a quick thank you and farewell to Liza, and a question about how you're going to answer questions that are raised today. I don't think you're responding, directly, but will there be like online or maybe at the end of the Q&A? I would love to get some answers. So let me jump right in. On the 32,000 square feet addition, I think that was mentioned, that was the number at the beginning. I cringe whenever I hear that because it's not a net new green space unless I'm missing something major. It's taking down a fence around a space that's already green, so maybe it's access to green. But on the other side of the scale, you have a whole lot of new construction all around where the old Way Stadium was the two half circles. Now almost the whole perimeter is built. And so calling it net gain or loss needs to count both of those. My biggest concern, on the transportation document, there's a big inconsistency. In one place on page 10, it says, letter B, parking access for everyday users. It says Franklin Park remains open on game days and designated parking will still be available for zoo visitors, golfers, and individuals engaged in passive recreation during game times. Then right below that, it says from under when it applies, from 2 hours before kickoff until 1 hour after the game ends, in-park parking will be restricted to visitors with a specific scheduled use, e.g. zoo admission, golf tee time, or permitted event. And then a separate point, parking remains available to all park users, including those engaged in passive recreation outside the restricted hours. So which is it? Can passive park users come to the park to walk or jog or walk their dog during game times or hours before and after or not? That really needs to be clarified.
Sarah, that you're over your 2 minutes, but I understand if you have additional questions, you can hold on to them. We'll see if there's time to come back for another set of questions. I see the next hand raised is Christine Poff. You're still muted, Christine. Hold on just a sec. Okay. There you go. Try again.
Okay. Is that right?
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much. My name is Christine Poff, and I've been involved with the Franklin Park Coalition for 20 some odd years, and I've been a park user every day or at least every week for 35 years. And I first want to apologize that some of our Franklin Park Coalition board members and members who really wanted to be here and make a comment and listen and support were unable to be here just because it's a work day. So I want to start with that there's this history to the stadium being restored over the last 20 years. There was a proposal by Northeastern's football team, the Boston Scholar Athletes, the Olympics. There may have been one or two others that we didn't know about. All of them came to naught. And the building has just continued to sit there and disintegrate. If you walk in Franklin Park, as I'm sure many of you have, you note that the southern half of the park where the golf course is beautifully maintained and in great condition. And the northern half of the park really is a different story, with the stadium right in the center of the northern half. There's flooded ball fields and other areas. There's a severely eroded paths. There's crumbling, unsafe ruins, the overlook and the bear cages. There's cracked and pothole pavements. The woodlands in the northern area, especially Long Crouch, are overrun with invasives, and there's a lot of trash. We just hosted a couple of cleanup days, and we're just stunned by how much trash we picked up. And as I listened to the signage description, there's very little, if any, wayfinding. So we feel like this project is bringing, it's just going to change the picture for that northern part of the park in such a positive, important way, with incredible investments that are already happening, in part because of Liza's leadership at the Parks Department and as a landscape architect. Already there's an overlook planning project for the overlook ruins. There's a make safe project for the bear cages. The Glen Road path has been repaved. And that's just so incredibly exciting after 20 some odd years of advocacy for this park and for that area. The coalition has not been 100% supporter of this project from the get-go. We hosted or put out a survey about a year and a half ago, and we learned that the 700 plus people who responded, there was a huge amount of support among people who live close to the park and who support the BPS athletics and who support women's sports.
Christine.
Am I already over 2 minutes?
Yes, you are already over your 2 minutes, but
Okay.
thank you for your comments.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to move to the next person. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's all right. Thank you. The next hand is District 7 office.
I didn't get to say what I wanted to. Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say hello to everyone. Thank you for the presentation. And I think you might have missed me at the beginning of the meeting. So I just wanted to say on record that the District 7 office is present. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next hand is Karen Motti-Brodek.
Hi, my name is Karen Motti-Brodek. I'm the executive director of the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, a nonprofit that supports the Emerald Necklace Parks. I'm very proud to have been investing in a variety of work throughout the Emerald Necklace, including Franklin Park. This today, I'm sad to say, commissioners, that I think that White Stadium needs to be renovated, but I believe that the project that is before you is perhaps the largest and most consequential project ever to be proposed for Franklin Park. And I do not believe that it is ready or adequately analyzed to the point that you can approve it. And I want to mention a few key things which I tried to outline in my letter. One of the last times you had a meeting, you requested a few key things to be provided before you would be willing to move forward. And I laid those out in the letter, including a tree removal tree meeting, which occurred. I will say that I don't think that meeting allowed for any real public comment or influence on the plan to remove 145 trees, but that meeting or that Zoom occurred. But the design had to be completed for all areas up to your satisfaction, and also a completed transportation access plan agreement. I want to mention three things. Number one, this case is still playing out in the courts. It is true that the Article 97 questions that we posed in front of the court and the trust questions were not decided in our favor at the trial court level, but we are in the appeal process, and there are lots of community members and others that are encouraging us to proceed to protect the park and the resource here. The transportation plan is exactly what it is. It is a diagram. It does not include actual analysis of the impacts of the transportation reality and how that plays out on the park. And that is a very big deal. This project has not received MEPA analysis in order to actually understand the impacts of these things. So those spaces that are showing shuttle buses coming in and pirouetting on the head of a pin, and unloading people, which I think, none of this analysis has been done, but would be between one bus every minute or a minute and a half. This is all stuff that we're having to do on our own because it's not being provided by the city. Is a recipe for failure.
Karen, we're past the timer. Do you want to just finish the last point, or do you want
Last
to come
point
back at
is
the
that
end?
this project, people do not know how much this costs yet. They have moved forward with demolition, but the project would be either 200 million or more. There is still time to do the right project by Franklin Park for the public. And I encourage you as commission leaders, though I don't know if it will happen, to lead and make a difference for this park to the end of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Valley.
Unmute. Can you unmute me? Am I unmuted? Thank you.
You are, yes.
I'm in Charlestown, and I am very concerned about this because as White Stadium goes, as does the rest of the city intentionally blighted this property, and they have not maintained it. So they're the ones who should be fixing it, $29 million, instead of privatizing this Frederick Law Olmsted treasure, which was granted to the Boston public. It was never created for privatization, and some of Boston's most wealthy families who have benefited from Boston's people, they should be the very people to help fund the repairs, which are for their children and the youth, and an investment in our children. It should be not made for that $100 million will be committed, or for whatever that cost is, from the taxpayers. It should not include all new trees as if that is equitable. I live in Charlestown, and the very people who gave this presentation today gave us the same presentation, and they intend to cut 288 century-old trees at the Bunker Hill housing, and they have replaced them with trees about the size of my baby finger. There is no way that shade or protection of our nature is equitable. And it is time for the people in Boston to stand up as a Green New Deal city that the mayor says that she is. The people who are on this call that advocate are paid by the Wu administration or professionals that gave us the same song and dance in Charlestown. And I invite you to come see what you're facing. The city of Boston needs to deliver to the children and generations to come, and not enrich wealthy people who are going to take this from the public use. Thank you.
Thank you. The next hand is Dolores Bogdanian.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to just say, Dolores Bogdanian. I live on Park Drive in the city, and would like to underscore the two prior comments that were made just now. And, this was a great presentation. Unfortunately, the stadium that is being proposed is in the wrong place. It shouldn't be in the middle of Franklin Park. And I think that we all know, and you should know, that the impact of the stadium and the impact it will have on the surrounding parkland, and the existing parkland, which is White Stadium, will be very detrimental for how many lifetimes going forward. For that reason alone, this project should have been stopped. I'm sorry that it's gotten this far, and it really is a shame that we need to file a lawsuit, for our parkland to be protected. That's what this park commission is for, and I'm losing hope in the members of this commission that you will do the right thing and stand up and prevent the ever-increasing and encroaching shadows on our parkland that is happening all along the Emerald Necklace, and allowing projects to move forward that are obviously in violation of the parks ordinance. So, this Green New Deal, from my perspective, is a very bad deal. And you're not doing Mayor Wu any favors by approving this, because there are a lot of people out here who are really unhappy and really just disheartened by the lack of commitment to our parks, which, as the prior speaker said, is our legacy. And what we're passing along is a very cheap substitute. I don't think my comments are going to change your mind, but I would like to at least suggest, if you go forward, is that you formally and explicitly dedicate all of the so-called park areas that the developer is proposing be parkland. Dedicate it informally as parkland, subject to Article 97 and the Parks Commission jurisdiction. So there'll never be a question again about whether or not, in fact, it is parkland. But I'd rather you just stop the project altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. Next hand is Kate Phelps.
Hi, thank you for calling on me. I'm concerned that the people who are in favor of this see this as a bold Mayor Wu's initiative that's going to build her a legacy. I'm also amused that the soccer team that's coming in that chooses to call itself a football club. This is not England. You don't have a legacy. You've never been in Boston. There is a legacy to Franklin Park, and it's not people wandering around. It's people going there for tennis and sports and meets and running and all kinds of programming that's been there for decades. If there's been underfunding, that's been the responsibility of the city, and frankly, for people who sit on our Parks Department. I learned during the court case how much Liza, in fact, did to try and protect Franklin Park. And I'm sorry it stopped where it did, because I think what's being proposed here in saying that Article 97 doesn't protect our public space is going to have a huge impact on every other public space in Boston. If you can't protect Franklin Park from jumbotrons and lights and noise and encroachment, then why not close up the Parks Department? This is not doing any favors for our neighborhoods, and I would suggest maybe they should build this in Boston Common, or build, something else in Boston Common. That will be your next job. My two questions, and I've been to enough of Mayor Wu's feedback sessions to know that they really don't here to answer our questions. But my first is this really limited to 20 days a year? Are you telling me that the Legacy Group aren't going to rent out the space? That they're not going to try and make money, even more money, out of what they're already making out of a very cheap deal with the city of Boston? And secondly, how much is this going to cost us? The project is being presented as a win for everybody in Boston. More trees, we're told, more hours per day, someone else to clean up our trash. But really, if Mayor Wu were serious about the Boston Public School students, she wouldn't be breaking her agreements with supporting Madison Park High School, which badly needs the money, and the John D. O'Brien School, which she tried to move to a white community, and taking all that money and handing it to some rich outsiders who wear high heels on a football park and tell us that they want to have legacy in our neighborhood? It's cynical. And please, at the very least, don't allow them to plaster Boston Public Schools on top of a stadium, which is really the Trojan horse for private industry. We don't need it. Please do your job as a parks department and stand up to the encroachment of big money in public space.
Thank you. The next hand is Judith Glavin. Give us one more second. I think we'll get you so you can unmute. There you go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, Judith Glavin. I'm a 26-year resident of Jamaica Plain and been opposing this project almost from the get-go. It is, I think, just shocking that the Boston Parks Commission is supporting a private for-profit industry to take over our public space, not just our public park space, but Frank Law Olmsted's park in the Emerald Necklace. It's heartbreaking that this is happening and how it has happened. And Liza, I appreciate all of the work you've done, but you opened this meeting, and I think it really is indicative of the process that has happened. You said, we are here to vote to approve for White Stadium to move forward. You didn't say we're here to hear this and make a vote. You said vote to approve. And that for me really was very indicative of everything that's happened over the course of this process. So I'm opposed to it. This is not the appropriate place for a for-profit private soccer league. But if this does move forward, as many have said, we continue to not have the appropriate in-depth analysis and information around transportation, lighting, noise, overall impact on the green space in the park and use for public on a regular basis. It's a glossed over presentation, and it's not fair. It's not fair to the taxpayers of Boston. We need the appropriate analysis before this project goes forward. Sadly, the trees have already been cut down. There's nothing we can do there, but let's get some analysis. We just don't have what we need to really understand the long-term impact of this. And again, I'll just finish to say I am completely in favor and supportive of renovating White Stadium for Boston Public Schools. We need good resources for our public schools. This is not saying we do not support a renovation for Boston Public Schools. It is saying this is not the appropriate approach for doing that, and this is not the appropriate use by a for-profit private industry of our public park space. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Stephen Cass.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. First of all, I've seen so many improvements in Boston in the athletic facilities from when I lived there in the early 90s until today. I'm a athletic facility planner for communities, formerly a longtime athletic administrator. I have a strong soccer background. I was the captain of the Yale soccer team, played pro soccer in US and in Egypt, and I worked on the '94 World Cup. I helped Ohio State and the city of San Francisco plan their athletic recreational campuses. And I've been watching this project from afar. I've gotten a little bit involved in it. I'd love to see this be a success for everyone, for the women's soccer team, for the Boston Public Schools. Unfortunately, the way it's being planned goes against all of the functionality principles of athletic facility planning of the last 50 to 75 years. In all of the US and England, Major League Soccer, women's soccer, NFL, all the pro soccer fields in England, not one of them has a track around it. And the reason for that, there's lots of reasons. I could spend an hour talking about them. It pushes the fans away from the field, and it creates an environment that's not intimate. There have been dozens and dozens and dozens of pro soccer teams around the country that have tried to succeed in similar stadiums, including in Boston at Nickerson Field, and they've all failed. There's also, from a Boston perspective, people stopped doing the track stadium 50 plus years ago. Because way back when you played football in the fall, track in the spring, that was it. No lacrosse, no field hockey. So that design went out more than half a century ago. You can't play a soccer game and use the track at the same time. You can't play lacrosse and use the track. So this is a design principle that should have been stopped in the first meeting. This is something that doesn't go on anywhere in the world. Secondly, I've talked about all this use that the Boston Public Schools are going to get. I'll be quick. I've heard about this being an unprecedented partnership. There's nothing else like it. Well, there's a reason for that. You cannot have a grass field that is getting daily use as a municipal facility. It is impossible. If the Boston Public School get lots of use out of it, the pro soccer team is going to have a lumpy dirt field. It's impossible. So who's probably going to lose are the Boston Public Schools. What happens when you have a rainy day in the fall? They have a couple soccer games scheduled. You're going to cancel those games? Most likely. So I've spoken at length with Wake Med Soccer Park in North Carolina. They have a similar municipal stadium. It's not used for daily use. They play 60 to 70 total games a year on that field. That's it. So to be 20 games they resod that field annually at a cost of $500,000. So I'd love to see this be a success, but the two biggest pieces,
Mr. Haas.
are functionally going to make this very difficult for the city of Boston to get the use that they think they're going to get. And would love to answer questions if anybody wants to contact me.
Thank you. Domingos DeRosa.
Good morning, guys. My name is Domingos DeRosa, lifetime resident here in Boston. I've been part of the process for the last 4 years, discussing the pros and cons of what's going on today. First, I would say, this is something that should have been put to a vote by residents of Boston. We have tons of folks who are in disagreement. And then we also have folks who are in agreement. And that's the democracy process. But that doesn't seem to be what's going on with White Stadium today. I'm a BPS grad, class of 96, Madison Park, Voc Tech. And over the years, some of the concerns that we had is still true to today. We wasn't able to use the facilities because, as Stephen said, when you have countless hours of usage, you're going to have to, the turnaround time for a grass field takes a process. From day one, I've been speaking for the students who today have little to no programs to utilize White Stadiums. We have today, what was said to us 4 years back is 2 high schools out of the 7 football programs that we do have will use the facilities. We don't have lacrosse. We don't have field hockey. We barely have a soccer program in all our schools. So to use BPS students as a bargaining chip is disgusting. We cannot continue to allow the city to say BPS is going to benefit when we know they're not. We don't have the programs in our school system for our students to be able to utilize White Stadium. So I'll say that again and again and again and again until I'm shown otherwise. The sad part about it is we as a city had to take our own city to court to put a hold on a proceeding that should have just been done by the administration in office today. This is something that is tearing our city apart. It's causing more distance between communities than bringing communities together. We have lost trees that we cannot replace that are over 100+ years. Now we're being told that you're going to take the tennis courts that are located near near the White Stadium and bring them to the other side of Franklin Park. So again, we're not doing a service to the community. We're doing a disservice. And furthermore, the only way that this project is actually going to benefit all of us here in Boston is to look at the fact that Carter's Playground today now is being overran by Northeastern. It's another private entity, public collaboration that does not work for us here in Boston. So I'll finish by saying this. We who live here, who utilize the park, are in disagreement of having the city move forward with this project without having a full scope of what is really going to happen to take away our prize and possession for our students and add a soccer program that is not for us. Now we're being told, again, you're going to add a sports shop. Like, are we going to sell Madison Park memorabilia? Are we going to sell English memorabilia? You know, a beer garden? I mean, how many students do we have?
Or you're past your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to let those who haven't spoken yet get a chance to speak before those who have spoken speak for a second time. So the next hand would be Melissa Hamill.
Hi, and thank you very much for letting me speak. I am extremely opposed to this project. I have been from the almost the very beginning. I have lived in Jamaica Plain for over 40 years. I love Franklin Park. It's one of our treasures. And I have had, I support the White Stadium getting renovated for the school children. But this is not the way to do it. I'd also like to just, disprove a few of the statements that have been made already about a robust community engagement. I don't believe that has happened. As Judy Glavin also mentioned, is from every time we get on a Zoom meeting, we're cut off, our questions aren't answered. If you look around, you'll see that most of the people on this call are opposed to this. And even though some people would like to claim that they've had polls that showed that there's some support. That is not a scientific poll, and it was done, and one of them was done way before any of the meetings were engaging the public. So let me just tell you from personal experience, I've talked to my neighbors, and many of them still don't even understand what's going on. They don't know about the parking plan. They don't know about the access. They don't have an understanding, and that is at the city's fault for not engaging people correctly. Having Zoom meetings is not the way to do it. You have to have in-person conversations with people and let them speak. We have a lot of concerns. Just two examples, your transportation plan, which is unworkable. You require, place an undue burden on the residents. They have to go down to City Hall and pay off parking tickets before they can even apply for a resident parking pass. If they want to have a barbecue or a birthday party on a Saturday during the summer, which most people would like to do, you give them one parking permit for a guest. This is unreasonable. Unreasonable burden is leveled onto the neighbors. And for what? For a for-profit entity that's going to come in, cut down trees, build a stadium that is twice the size of what we have right now, cost the taxpayers $220+ million to renovate this, half of which is the burden of the taxpayers. And let me tell you, if this doesn't pan out the way they want it to, and it proves to be too small, or as Stephen Cass pointed out, there's going to be complications with the field, this private entity will leave, and then we will be left with a white elephant at White Stadium, something that we can't maintain, that's twice the size. We're going to be left with merch stores and beer gardens that they don't benefit any of us except for this Boss legacy enterprise. So this is a terrible plan, and I'm asking the Parks Department to please do your jobs. Protect the parkland of Boston. Do not rubber stamp Mayor Wu's misguided plan here. We need you to stand up and speak for the people who need to have parks in their neighborhoods. We don't have backyards. That's our backyard.
Thank you, Ms. Hamill. We have not yet heard, I don't believe, from Peter Fronholtz.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Pete Fronholtz. I live in JP, right next to Franklin Park. I've been to dozens and dozens of community meetings, and you know what I'm seeing of, you know, the drawings and the representation of what the future of that north side of the park looks like. You know, I can't help but think that, you know, a lot of feedback has been taken into consideration. It feels like there's a lot more usable space than there is currently. It seems like the stadium is smaller and more compact than the original proposal. And I think the overall benefits of a lease that doesn't transfer ownership, that provides, you know, community funds and resources to really maintain that end of the park are going to be beneficial for the long term. I think for the BPS students, and as a parent, I've sat in that stadium, and it would have been great if my kid had been able to play in a new stadium. I mean, for decades ahead, you know, this is going to be a benefit, I think, for BPS. And I think in the community in the long run, it'll be a tremendous benefit. You know, the north end of the park needs a lot of work, and nobody has done anything about that for a long time. I mean, blaming the city, quote unquote, you know, there are people in the past that were responsible for those decisions. I mean, I think there's no political solution that everybody agrees with, but this is an opportunity to move forward and really improve Franklin Park and the stadium, and create you know, something that'll be there for students for years to come. I think the NWSL schedule is not just Saturdays, so I think there'll be plenty of Saturday birthday party options. And the lease, as I understand, means 20 games and 20 games only. So the park is huge. There are other parts of the park that will be open on game days. And I think the ongoing interaction with the community is a great opportunity to resolve issues that come up along the way. So I think this should go forward, and I commend the Parks Commission, you know, for taking this seriously all along, and listening to how things have evolved over time. Thank you.
Thank you. The next hand that we haven't heard from yet, our next person is Yvonne.
Sorry, let me see. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I am a member of the Friends of Maniacas Boulevard. We fought to save the trees on the boulevard. There were a huge number of trees that were going to be affected by the construction, the modification of the boulevard. And our arguments were similar to those who are opposed to this project. Trees need to be considered living beings. The demolition includes destroying green space that is invaluable. And for all the things that people have said here, I agree with all the people who oppose the project, in that although I agree also with the people who feel that we need improvement at the stadium and we need facilities for the students, that this project just is not the adequate project. It has not fulfilled the need for helping the students develop, and at the same time maintaining the green space and the historic character of the park, which we all love and we want to maintain. And so I think it needs more work, definitely. And I'm very sad that the demolition of the trees has gone ahead without the full approval, as the opponents have mentioned, of the project. This is still in court. There shouldn't have been any demolition and no killing of trees before this project could be approved. And I join the other people who have spoken about how we hope that the Parks Department will defend our green space and the parks that we love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
The next person is Kay Baroki.
Oh, hi. Thanks, everybody. I'm not sure, but I think Christine Poff was bypassed. Is that true? Did she already speak? I don't think so.
She had a chance to speak once, and I'm making sure those who haven't spoken yet at all speak before those get a second turn. So you're up.
Okay, well, great. I just wanted to echo some of the concerns about the mixed use of the stadium being questionable. Also, I want to let you know there are a lot of people in my community, which isn't in a butter to Franklin Park, but we're like one community removed. And a lot of people in my community also oppose this, but time and space just don't allow for everybody to come to all of these meetings and have their voices heard. I'm also concerned about like having javelin and shot put throwing right alongside the open park space. Like, how are passerbys not going to be hurt by that? I'm also concerned about the transportation plan. My community sits between Ruggles Station and Franklin Park. Northeastern University is a neighbor to us. They have a huge parking garage next to Ruggles Station. I'm having a hard time seeing how people from the outer suburbs are going to come into the city by train when they're going to be able to drive right down Melnia Cass and park in Northeastern's garage. It annoys me that that might be a parking site that Northeastern will profit off of, where an additional concern is bringing all of these strangers into our neighborhoods often results in like really poor behavior. And I'm concerned about the park being treated poorly and who's going to patrol the park and make sure bad behavior is kept to a minimum. I just want to say those things. And also I want to yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Elisa. Thanks.
Thank you. We're actually going to just keep going with the way we're going despite the yielding of time. Appreciate that though. The next speaker is Arlene Madison.
And thank you for the opportunity. I really don't want so much to make my own comment as to sincerely ask the members of Boston Planning Department and the Boston Park Commission what your opinions are about Article 97 protection for public park land. Obviously, in Franklin Park, with this project at White Stadium, as you propose it, there is a change of use. And Article 97 was intended to protect public parkland, to provide a public process when there is a change of use. And I sincerely would like to understand how the park department sees this as not worthy of Article 97 process. I think that Sarah Freeman, I believe, asked if you will be answering any of the questions or concerns raised today. And that's my question. I mean, you are protectors of the park. You are those people that we look to provide care and maintenance and protection. And our public parkland in urban areas especially is so dear and fragile. So is there a forum, please, for you to explain to us why you don't think, or do you think that this project deserves Article 97 protection? I think it does. And I am very worried about the precedent that this will set in other parks that will also see proposals for change of use and will not go through that that process. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify, I'm trying to make sure everybody who has their hands raised has an opportunity to speak. We will then turn this back over to commissioners. If there are additional questions from commissioners that they want to ask, we want to ask, we can do so. I think there are a couple of clarifying points that we can share. And then commissioners will have a chance to, deliberate or talk before we call for a motion. So we can go a little bit more here with the people who we haven't heard from yet. The next hand I see is Dot Fennell.
Thank you. So I want to say thank you to the Parks Department for doing your job and putting the heart and soul and effort into this project. I've been watching the process as a neighbor right across the street for the past 2 years, and I have been seeing the evolution of this plan. So the idea that work has not been put into this is a false narrative, and I'm tired of hearing it. I also want to say that, I had to get off this meeting to go to another work meeting to get back on this, and I wish there was a better representation of the support that there is for this. I know so many folks, to the chiefs and the folks on the Parks Department who are in support of this project, who are currently at work right now, who were not available from 10 a.m. until whenever this meeting is going to go to sit here through this. So please know that there are tons of folks who are very eager and excited, not just for the opportunity to have this stadium for BPS students, but also to have an opportunity to support women's sports. The last thing that I keep on hearing, and the transportation plan, also I think, I'm so happy that we're finally having more of a management of Franklin Park and transportation, and I've seen it, and I think there's a little bit of work to do, but it's come a long way. So thank you to the team for taking a bunch of the suggestions that have been put out there. I think it looks great. I'll follow up directly with some more ideas, but otherwise it's looking really good. And I think it's in line with a lot of the other things that progressive cities are doing when it comes to active transportation management. It's right in line with what other cities are doing. So for the folks who are saying they're not doing it, you guys are doing the work. Lastly, this constant narrative about how this is for folks in the suburbs, it's not. I know friends and family and neighbors across the Metro Boston area that go to Bruins games, that go to Fleet games, that go to collegiate games, that go to Red Sox games, that go to Celtics games, that go to Revolution games. Folks who live within 8 miles of the stadium who also want to come to this. So can we please open up the idea that just because folks here might not want to go to a soccer game doesn't mean that there are going to be people that are within this area that will. This is not just for suburban folks. And even if suburban folks do come, they already do come by train. They already do come in and park at facilities and take shuttles. This is 10,000 people. This is far smaller than the other arenas that we have, and we have facilities in place to manage this. So I am done with my time, and thank you for the work. And I look forward to next year when this facility is open and serving the city of Boston.
Thank you. I see Kim Everett, and then I see Lauren Madison, and I see Beefy Cousin. And then at that point, we will have heard from all our first timers, because I want to make sure that we keep moving, and we'll see what happens after that. Maybe we'll go 1 minute for a couple more people on a second time. So Kim, Lauren, Beefy, thank you. There you go, Kim.
Hi, Kim Everett. I'm a 30-plus resident here in Jamaica Plain. I'm also a public school teacher here in Boston. I think the this proposal doesn't matter which perspective you're looking at it, from an environmental perspective, from a Boston public school perspective, from women's sports perspective, or local community and business perspective. This is not the plan for us, especially considering there is an alternative plan that actually would address all of these things. For an environmental perspective, taking over Parks land for and cutting down the trees and having it privatized, definitely not appropriate. Again, if we are truly, truly for Boston Public School students, you could take half this money, make an incredible stadium just for them and for the community. And that alternative has never been seriously considered, even though it would really address what we need for Boston Public School students. If we're looking from women's sports perspective, I am a women's athlete. I played soccer, lacrosse, have coached, have reffed. I go to women's soccer's events, and this is not the place for them either. This will be far smaller than they deserve. They deserve to be in an equal stadium as the men's teams, and they will and also, as they point out, having the track around it, like, this isn't good for them either. So if we are truly want to be in support of women's sports, this is not the project for them either. If we're looking at local transportation, the points that Sarah Freeman brought up about, will people be able to come and park and jog during these events? And if that's true, how do we know that people coming to these events aren't going to be parking in those spaces? If we have just permanent parking on game days, like Friday nights, local businesses along Washington Street will not be able to have people come to their businesses, and they are totally unaware of how this is going to impact their businesses. We have an alternative plan that would address all these things. Please vote against this project.
Thank you, Kim. So again, we're going to hear from Lauren and Beefy, and then may just do one more minute on the 4 people who have their hands raised, and then we'll turn it back over to the commissioners with any follow-up questions. So Lauren.
Hi, I live in Brighton, and I want to quickly echo the concerns in opposition to this plan that have been expressed by most of the speakers, starting with Lewis. The park near my condo was renovated a few years ago, and it's made a huge difference in the quality of my life. The neighborhood around Franklin Park deserves the same, not displacement of park space with construction of a private sports and entertainment venue. The city has said it has the funds that would be needed to renovate and maintain White Stadium for our students, and I urge you to do that rather than going forward with this plan. I also yield the remainder of my time to Lewis.
Thank you. Next is Beefy Cousin.
Yes, thank you. I just want to start off with saying I respect everybody's views, but I think for the most part, there's a lot of people that appear to be Nostradamuses, or people are scared of change. We got to have change. We got to have change. And another thing I want to say, just we're talking about a park, but I've never seen so much outrage. I wish we had this much outrage when there's, shootings on the streets, and, the kids are getting killed out here. And I wish we had this much outrage from just about everybody who's, that's against this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't be so concerned about just the park. I think this park and the stadium is a great idea, because from where I'm from, to me, it's going to build relationships with kids in the communities, all Boston, and which is something that we need. I've been coaching 29 years. And I'm tired of just coaching I'm proud of it, but all I do is coach, inner city youths. I want kids from Southie. I want kids from Eastie. I want kids from Somerville. Brighton rather. You know what I mean? I feel like this is going to help bridge this area, in this area that us coaches are dying for. We're looking for a place like this stadium to help us bridge the communities. And it's bigger than football. Just the soccer thing. This place is going to be amazing, but this outrage that I'm hearing, like, I wasn't even sure if I want to get on here, but I am going to get on here. And people talking about the parks, some people on here have no idea what the Parks Department does. They are a great entity for the city. And I'm talking about they clean our parks. I mean, they just do so much. I can go on and on about the parks, just as someone who coaches and actually at our field, we call our field a safe zone. But this stadium is going to be positive, and I say it, and I say it from day one, and I say it now. Half the people on here, and it's no disrespect, but half of the people on here are going to be dead and gone. Okay, we need stuff for our future, for our kids, the kids that are coming up now. There was an interview with a whole bunch of kids. Not one of them said nothing negative about this project. They all love the idea, and that's what it's about. It's about the kids, not us old adults, 50 plus, that are complaining. I guarantee if we put 10 kids on here, it won't be as many negative comments on here. As it is now, if we interview the kids or the kids had the forum. So I just want to say thank you. No disrespect to no one, but again, half of us going to be dead and gone. We need to do stuff for the future of our kids. Bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we've heard from everybody who I said we would hear from in our first go around. I see we're still getting new hands. I ask that those of you who are interested in speaking a second time, consider the context in which you're adding additional points, because we also want to have a chance to discuss what we've heard today, answer some questions, and allow, the hearing to return to the commissioners. So with that, we can do another minute, and I'll start with Louis.
Okay, I saw Mr. Derek Evans' hand go up before me.
I think Mr. Derek Evans added his hand after I had finished with all the first hands. I'll get him for 1 minute in this, but Louis, if you want to add some questions or comments for another minute, please do so. You just muted maybe one more time.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to have a second bite at the apple. And I think basically I reiterate what I said earlier. If you're going to take time to answer some very specific questions which have been raised about parking along Pierpont Road, along Plaisted Road, along the area between the Plaisted and the zoo, if you're going to answer the questions about the use of the public restrooms and the impact of driving along these roads during actual use, if you're going to answer the questions, if you're going to do that, I won't beg the question because a lot of questions have been raised. I think that Steve Cass raised some questions. There have been some questions that really need to be answered, but I just want to say before we end, that a number of the city agencies entrusted with the support of the public, the Landmarks Commission, Planning Department, BPDA, Boston Design and Construction, Boston Public Schools, they abdicated their right to represent the public by voting on a project that they didn't have all the designs in front of them. We can accept the pig in the poke, but that is not in the best interest of the public. I just urge you as members of the Boston Park Commission to do your job, to basically look at the interests of the public parks. So thank you. I appreciate a second bite at the apple, but I urge you to represent the public park and the public community.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Evans, we're going to do 1 minute. Thank you for joining and sharing your input. You're coming in at the tail end of the public comment, but we want to give you a chance.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to say that this project is actually a tremendous opportunity that is actually, I don't want to be pejorative, but is kind of being wasted. And by wasted, I mean that after decades of both disinvestment in the park, right, for whatever reasons, right, financial constraints, or some people would say abject racism, whatever, the decades of disinvestment in the park and the disinvestment in the stadium, or the non-investment, let's say, and the disrepair. We've had an overdue opportunity to repair the stadium and to make it functional for its purposes and within its traditional and legal contexts of uses as a primarily and solely like a school children's stadium or field of dreams. And we sort of leapfrogged over all of that. And that also, it's important to note that that sort of slow or slide to the condition of the stadium and the park has also occurred at the same time with the slow slide of where we are also at now, which is the rate at which Black and brown school children and their families are leaving Boston has never been higher than it is right now. And what I'm saying is, when I say it was an opportunity that I'm afraid we've missed, was that we could have thought about this project in a way that not only prioritizes the school children thoroughly before getting into, funding mechanisms and privatization or whatever word you want to use, if it's privatizing or whatever, to bring in such a big thing suddenly, like a big either positive or negative bomb blast into the middle of this community and this park, an Olmsted Park, okay, I think is really disingenuous, intentionally or not, because the fact is, in 10 years, when this lease is up, there will very likely, almost certainly, be far fewer Black and brown school children and families in the city of Boston to play anything in White Stadium. We all know that. But instead of combining these social goals and goods of repairing, restoring the stadium, not just demolishing it and building something like extravagantly outsized and out of place, I'm going to give everyone the benefit of the doubt that everyone has good intentions, but has unwittingly, and I don't blame community members like my brother, who after so many decades of non-investment and disinvestment in this community, that when this many dollar signs appear suddenly in front of you, it's like a menu at Yuji's. It's almost hard to not to look for reasons
make
to
sure
want it.
if you have a final point, please make it, because I need to ask the next person to speak.
Well, I'll just end then by saying I'm a Boston residential taxpayer. I'll be here in 10 years, God willing. And I'm investing into this. I am a former Boston public school teacher for a dozen years. I got 2,000 former students and their children in the city and nearby. And I, like others from the community and others, I've got a lot of insight that never makes it to the Q&A, if you will, particularly on Zooms, that are so limited.
Okay. Mr. Cass, we're reducing the amount of time because we're winding this down now. Do you have another point you want to make with just one more minute of time? Looks like you're still muted, so give us just a second to let you unmute. Thank you. There you go.
Thanks. First of all, I think everyone's making a lot of great points, and I just wanted to say this one thing. This started off as a $30 million idea by the Boston soccer players. And all of a sudden it morphed into a $200 million project. It sounded like a really good feel-good thing at the beginning, and now it's Jonathan Munster. This is $100 million of public funds. You could build 10 more Daily Fields, which is a great facility that public schools, the city has. You could build a tennis complex. There's so many things you could do for $100 million. You don't need a 10,000 seat stadium. High school field hockey and soccer games don't need 10,000 seats. And unfortunately, this is probably going to set you back for 50 years. This money could change the landscape of the Boston public schools and your recreational facilities. And one other piece, you're building all this great infrastructure, but you're building for an infrastructure for a grass field that's going to get very little use. So how are we going to use the training facilities if you can't play many games there?
Yeah.
So
Thank you. You made
that's
that
all.
point.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yep. Karen Marty Brodeck.
I'm going to try and be short, which is not my forte. I think some people have mentioned the fact that there have been a lot of public meetings and the design has changed, and I don't disagree. I think there have been a lot of public meetings. I don't think there's been a lot of public decision making, and I don't think there's been the fundamental structure of how this deal was created and set up and sort of handed to the public as the only way to do this project. That has not been shaken. There are still the football team still does not have access to the field until the very end of the season. All of the talk of additional opportunity for access is limited to restrooms and other facilities that we need badly. But the good news is we are at a moment when we have and we know we can do with a fraction of the funds, 50 million or less, a public renovation that will be 100% available to the public. And we've done analysis on the debt service that's required for this $100 million project or commitment from the city, which may even increase. And we can tell that over the first 10 years, the city will.
Thank you. Sarah Freeman, just one more minute. Hopefully, if you can make a point that you didn't make before, that would be great. I see Beefy, your hand just went back up. We're the last person who's going to speak after Sarah is Christine, and then we're going to shift back to the commissioners. So thank you, Sarah. Go ahead.
Okay, a few more questions on the transportation plan. They talk about parking for limited, no parking except for limited emergency vehicles, broadcast trucks, and a small number of essential personnel, but they don't say numbers or location. That's on page 3 and a map on 4. Page 5, where will the satellite parking lots be? Every transportation meeting, they're like, we'll tell you later, we'll tell you later. But at some point, if you call it final, we need to know. Previous drafts showed the shuttle buses using DCR parkways. They're not supposed to do that. And there are rare exceptions, but the Faulkner Hospital shuttle, for example, uses city streets until that last block. Perks for T riders. How are they going to show that they came on the T? If you use a Charlie card, you have no evidence. I'll stop there. I put comments in writing. I hope you all either saw or will see those. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have Christine Poff. Just 1 minute, Christine, and then we're going to close the public.
Thanks so much. I'll just quickly reiterate that we believe this has been a fabulous community process, more transparent and better engagement than the Franklin Park Coalition has ever had with city departments. And the things that we've won from this process, the stadium is now a much smaller footprint, and we've gained an additional 1 to 2 acres of green space that will be publicly accessible. Fewer trees will be lost. 30 healthy trees have been cut, but 500, and it was a much higher number at the outset. 500 new trees will be planted, and attention to the woodlands that has really never happened before. Long community access hours from 7 in the morning until 10 p.m., which we have advocated for years. Public restrooms. There are no other public restrooms in the park except down at the clubhouse. Maintenance of the entire area for 10 years by the private entity that the city will not have to pay, which will cost a couple $1 million a year. A huge commitment to minority hiring, which was deeply important to us, and an array of community benefits. And we don't believe our work is done. We do believe that the transportation plan will need more work, and we will stay at the table and continue to work with the city and with different agencies. But we're thrilled that they're coming to the table and really listening to our community input. And we want to make sure that the city and BUSP, that their commitments are held. But we've just been really impressed with the way the city and BUSP has come to the table to work with us and to hear community input and all those concerns that came from the survey we did. It may not have been a perfect scientific survey, but we got a ton of information and created a list of several pages of community concerns, and nearly all of them have been met. It's been just really exciting and wonderful to work with the city in that way. Thanks.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to close public comment on this project. Thank you all for participating and sharing your questions and comments. I want to make sure, there were some questions that were raised that I think we may be able to answer right now. I think one of them I'm going to take a stab at, but I may ask those who are here from the project team to add to my response as needed. I know that the transportation plan is something that's currently available for public review on the city's White Stadium website, and that public review also has a comment form associated with it. So a lot of the questions that were asked here today were about transportation, and obviously transportation is something that warrants a lot of consideration. The questions should be addressed, and plans will continue to be refined as needed. But I want to make sure that people understand that the Parks Commission is not the same as the transportation plan, and that we too are reviewing those plans and want to make sure we understand them, and that the impacts on the park are understood and addressed. But the citywide transportation considerations are something that are better resolved through the transportation planning process. So that plan is on the city's website. If there's somebody from the project team who wants to amend what I just said or correct it or what have you, can you please just raise your hand and we'll make sure to get the information right. Diana.
Liza, I think that's correct. That information is on our website. We put out the document for public comment as we're finalizing the TAPA agreement, and the exhibits that were included in this presentation and in the accompanying materials focus on the park impacts as it relates to the transportation impact for this project. So I think we've tried to be very explicit about the TNC areas, the drop off, and how all of those elements work together. If there are more transportation specific questions, as you noted, this will be conducted through the work that BTD does as standard practice through the codifying the TAPA agreement. But we also have our consultants here from HSH to answer some of those questions.
So related to transportation, just to keep us organized, do any of the associate commissioners have follow-up questions related to transportation that you would want to get further information on before we advance to the next step of this hearing today?
Liza, I don't have any specific questions, but Diana, if you could just once again clarify so that there's no confusion, how can folks go and get a copy of that plan and then voice their opinions and comments to that plan? Because as Liza said, this is not the forum for that, but I want to make sure it's explicitly understood by all how they could go about doing that.
So they can, we put this in the chat. So there's a Google form where you can see the entire document and download it in PDF format. It's also on the boston.gov/White Stadium website, so you should be able to find it there. And there's a comment form, so you can submit comments through the Google form. You can also submit comments directly to the boston.gov at White Stadium email server, and you can sign up for the newsletter and email updates, which will continue to provide updates as that work gets finalized.
Any other transportation questions from associate commissioners? Okay. I think another question that was raised that I think is important for us to touch on to some degree is this Article 97 protection of the stadium parcel. There was more than one of the public comments focused on that, and I believe that, you know, I could try to answer this, but I would prefer to have somebody else answer it. And I think the court ruling in the last few weeks directly addressed this, but I also believe that the project originated from the standpoint of understanding that Article 97 didn't extend across the stadium parcel. So again, I also just want to ask, Louis, you're holding up signs in front of your camera, which is really distracting to this commission hearing. If you could not do that, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to turn your camera off. If there's somebody who can speak to the Article 97 status of the stadium parcel, that would be helpful. And if you need to be unmuted, okay, great. If you could introduce yourself for the record, Sammy.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Sammy Nabulsi. I've been legal counsel to the city of Boston on this project, and also represented the city in the litigation that was alluded to, both by Commissioner Myers and then also Commissioner Meyer, and then also the some of the public commenters. I think as folks know, there was litigation filed concerning White Stadium, this project, and the actual parcel that White Stadium sits on in late February of 2024. For anyone following the news lately, there was a multi-day trial in Suffolk Superior Court on this very issue involving the project, and then there was a final judgment, rendered in the case. I think the actual final judgment issued on April 17 of this year, but in order and findings and rulings of law on the Article 97 issue a couple weeks before that, I believe on April 2nd. But this Article 97 question was the heart of the whole case. The whole case involved whether or not the project triggers Article 97, whether the parcel is in and of itself protected by Article 97, and then whether aspects of the project cause some sort of change in use to anything outside of the White Stadium parcel that may also trigger Article 97. And, in both cases, the Superior Court, so this is, third party, objective party, looking at the applicable law, looking at the applicable cases, looking at the project, determined that the parcel itself is not subject to Article 97. The project as proposed is not subject to Article 97. That is both with respect to the White Stadium parcel itself and also with respect to any parkway and path improvements being proposed as part of the project, and other activation projects in Franklin Park outside of that White Stadium parcel. And just for everyone's benefit, specifically on the why, and perhaps I can work with the Parks Department on putting a copy of that decision up on the project website if it isn't there already. It's a public document and folks can read more about, what is the legal status of the parcel. But, this really comes down to the fact that the legislature, acted twice, both in 1947 and in 1950, to reconstitute the White Stadium parcel away from kind of parkland or dedicated to parkland to a school building use and schoolyard, so long as it is within the care, custody, and control of the Boston Public School System, which is the case today. The legislature has acted on this issue. The legislature has reconstituted the parcel as not subject to Article 97. We have a Superior Court judgment that has said the same thing. And so that's, very simply why the parcel and this project is not subject to Article 97. I think earlier there was some testimony as to, an appeal process or what have you. Judgment entered in this case on April 17, 2025. I represent the city in this litigation. As of today, there's no appeal filed or pending. And so the case, at least at this moment, is over. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Are there any follow-up questions from commissioners related to the Article 97 points? Okay. Just making sure I see everyone. Okay, are there questions that other commissioners heard during the public comment period that they want to ask? I see Arlene Madison has their hand raised, but Arlene, we finished the public comment period of this meeting, so we're not going to be taking any more. Maybe it was just a carryover, but I just wanted to let you know. Do commissioners have other questions that they want to hear further clarity on as it relates to things they thought of through the public comment or things that were raised during public comment?
Liza, I don't have a question, but I do feel the need to make a personal comment in advance of the votes that I will be participating in shortly. I've heard reference to alternate plans and costs and how this project might be done better. And I just want to make sure that we all have a shared understanding that this is not a Parks Department project. This is not Parks Department property. So us as commissioners can really only vote on the project that is before us. So this is a private parcel. It's not parkland. It is an existing stadium. And we have a role to discuss the impact on the park from a matter of design, and that's exactly what we're doing. I also want to say I've been on the commission for many years now, and I have seen no other project, private or public, come before us so many times and get the level of review and iterative change in response to the public comments. So those are my personal comments that I wanted to make sure that I put out there.
Thank you, William. I too have some comments. I want to see if any other commissioners had anything before I jump in. Not that you can't go after me. I think we all can agree that investment in the stadium is long overdue. I think I heard that pretty much universally from everybody. And I also think we don't really have consensus on this call on how to go about that. And, one of the things that's been challenging with this project from the very first conversations about improving the stadium was that because this is on White Fund property managed by BPS, the project was originally approached as a school facilities improvement and not so much a holistic park and school project. And because the project started out with that imbalance, we've been working to course correct it ever since. And I wish that those who had the opportunity to be part of those earliest conversations about the renovation of White Stadium had approached the project from day one with a deep understanding of Franklin Park, the recommendations of the Franklin Park Action Plan, and the public input that we received from the communities surrounding the park who helped shape the plan over 3 years. But because of the way this project emerged publicly, it immediately put everyone on the defensive around protecting the park, myself included. And as a city, we should have done better. Back before Article 97 was established, Boston had a history of selling off pieces of parkland to other uses, not just White Stadium, but Shattuck Hospital, Hebrew Rehab on the former Joyce Kilmer Park, the West End House at Ringer Park, Church of the Annunciation at Allendale Woods, and others. And these transactions seems to have all been based on the ethos at the time that parks and open space uses were secondary to the importance of building uses. So the White Stadium project of today is an opportunity to demonstrate that that ethos has changed and that we understand the intrinsic value of our parklands and we don't see them as real estate opportunities. Though this project sits on its own parcel and is not public parkland, how it addresses the park is essential to get right. Article 97 doesn't extend to this parcel, which is all the more reason why we've needed to spend very significant amounts of time to make sure that the project that is proposed there is an appropriate neighbor to the park. And it's taken a lot of work over the last 18 months to get there. What we've seen with the White Stadium project is that just putting in a better building isn't enough. A project built on former parkland needs to be approached with a deference to the larger landscape that it sits within. And I think that everyone who has worked on this project understands the amount of time that's gone into the course correcting that I mentioned before. And because of all that work, we're now reviewing a project that does center around the importance of the experience in and the needs of Franklin Park. And I'm just gonna, I think we've heard a lot of them today, but I want to state in my own words what I see as the ways in which this project is achieving some goals at Franklin Park. The building siting, view sheds, signage, scoreboard, and pathway alignments have all been refined to respond to the park landscape. We're building a 360-degree two-sided facility with access and finishes that are appropriate to a park setting. We're opening up the southern end of the stadium and reconnecting it to the larger Playstead landscape, which was a major goal of the Franklin Park Action Plan. We're protecting the pedestrian and bike loop around the Playstead envisioned in the action plan through access gate design and placement and operations, and we're not expanding vehicular access to the park. We're adding a new type of activation in the Playstead through a food and beverage establishment with many requirements in place to ensure that it'll be a good neighbor to the park. We're adding public restrooms. We're removing fences and expanding public access to the stadium track and field, which at other parks, like in the Back Bay Fens and at Moakley Park, these spaces are some of the most heavily used and enjoyed by the public. And we can now have that at Franklin Park too. We're introducing a more diverse landscape palette around the stadium and have a partner to ensure that its maintenance needs will be met. And this planting strategy should be the first step towards establishing and stewarding more varied landscapes in other parts of the park. We're supporting beloved community uses through a thoughtful approach to event scheduling, professional facility management, and careful ongoing work with longstanding partners like the Cross Country Community and Franklin Park Coalition. And we've secured new long-term funding streams for the park that will allow for ongoing park investments to implement the recommendations of the action plan. Now, this isn't everything, but these are significant things. And I know that, people might point at any one of them and say they don't see it the same way, but that's what I'm seeing. Some of the commentary we've been hearing is that the city and the Boston Public Schools would be better off doing this project on their own without a partner. And while a partner for a school facility may be uncommon, it is not at all uncommon for parks facilities. Many of the places people love to visit in our parks are supported through partnerships. The Frog Pond Skating Rink, Courageous Sailing at Jamaica Pond, the New Flower Bakery on the Common. So through this project, we're setting an appropriately high bar for what should be delivered in a partnership of this magnitude. We are asking more of this partner than we've asked of any partner who has ever done a project in collaboration with the city. So it not only will provide significant capital dollars, but also long-term facility maintenance, revenue sharing, and it formalizes a new advisory committee to ensure that the stadium neighbors have a forum for ongoing engagement. I don't believe that a partnership here is the problem. And in fact, I think that it's likely to be what will enable this project to be a success. So while we can continue to regret the land disposition and development decisions that were made in the 1940s, more than 75 years ago, we can't go backwards to erase them. And what we should do is see them for the unique opportunities that they create now. So I'm in support of this project today because of what I see it has become over the last 18 to 24 months, really 18 months of design work, reviews, and community input. And I'm in support of what it will offer BPS students, student athletes more specifically, in a park adjacent community. And I'm supportive of the benefits it will bring to those who have loved Franklin Park for decades, despite the crumbling, underutilized facility at White Stadium. And I'm excited about what this project might catalyze at the park and the example this investment can set for future projects in the city. So that's my thinking, and I welcome any other commissioners to add to that.
Yeah, Liza, it's Gene, if I might add on just a couple of thoughts. And this is hard. And I will say that after 38 years of working professionally, now retired, but working to design improvements, working with communities to enhance public parks and playgrounds and athletic facilities throughout the city, it's unfortunate that we can't get a little bit closer alignment with some of the folks that are participating in this meeting. And I do believe that there are many positive benefits that are coming out of this initiative. And we've approved demolition. We have an ancient facility that needed to be upgraded in a way that's really desperate. We're increasing access, in my opinion, based on the information that has been provided to us. We're increasing the amount of amenities for Boston Public School students and for residents of the surrounding neighborhoods and throughout the city. We're creating a revenue stream that ensures a higher level of maintenance will be brought to this geographic area of the park that has been unknown and unseen in recent times. We're going to be inviting new visitors to this great and magnificent park footprint. And in doing that, building perhaps a wider network of stakeholders and supporters for Franklin Park overall. Many people have spoken in favor of this project throughout the process. I don't think that they're completely represented at this interaction today. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that perspective. And I serve as a volunteer on the Parks and Recreation Commission. And my interest in doing so was to continue to try to make a difference in regard to the Boston Park and open space system, and specifically the hundreds of properties that come under our jurisdiction. So decisions aren't reached lightly. I have tremendous respect for everyone who's spoken at this meeting, and I would just like for that to be understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bollinger. Are there any other commissioners who have anything they want to comment on or share? Not that you're required to do so. I just don't want to leave you without a moment to unmute if you wanted to. Okay. So I think with that,
Commissioner Meyer, sorry to interrupt you, but could we just read the list of the comment letters that were received?
Yes. Can you do that, please, Carrie? Because you have that in front of you. Thank you.
We received comment letters today from the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, the Olmsted Network, Ethan Carr, Melissa Hamill, Sarah Freeman, a person who asked to be called the anonymous student, Julie Brown, James Davis, Yvonne Leclerc, Diane Valley, Alan Iyer, and Jamie Cohen. And those letters were saved to the file and also provided to the Parks Commissioners, Associate Parks Commissioners.
Thank you. So I think at this point, I'd like to ask if we have a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve this project as proposed and presented.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay. I think I'll do a roll call vote after I read the vote, just so that I can, because I have you on separate pages of my Zoom call, which is hard. So this is a vote to approve the plans for White Stadium as proposed by Boston Public Schools and Boston Unity Soccer Partners, which is cited at 450 Walnut Ave, Avenue on assessing parcel number 120-348-6001, which is separate from and surrounded by Franklin Park, which is located in the neighborhoods of Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, and Jamaica Plain. So I'll call on myself first. I vote in favor. Commissioner Epperson,
Aye.
Commissioner Bollinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Kotz. You're muted. While we work to get you unmuted, I will go to Commissioner Pierre
Aye.
and Commissioner Washington. Thumbs up. It looks like you're muted. I'm going to ask that you be unmuted so you can actually, there you go. Aye. And Commissioner Kotz.
Yes, aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you all for your attention to the complexities of this project and the, sustained efforts both on behalf of the community and the design team for both sides of the stadium and those who are in attendance today to participate and, listen and share your perspectives with respect for all perspectives. And we'll continue to work together on this project, really with the hopes of making sure it is absolutely a success for the park. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Thank you very much.